Hey there, welcome to this week's follow-up practice tips video. First things first, before you do anything else, make sure you watch this week's YouTube video before you watch this one. Otherwise, this one's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Also, there's going to be a bunch of fretboard diagrams that you can download below in the YouTube lesson companion. You'll find that very, very helpful. I've added a couple other keys in there as well, so it's not just C major / A minor, because I feel like I try and focus on that key the most, but a lot of times you're not always playing in that key, so it's nice to be able to reference other ones as well. Now, I'm not gonna have every key in there. You're just gonna kind of have to shift things up or down to fit. So the whole basis for that lesson is I kind of wanted to take a different approach to what I normally do when it comes to fretboard navigation. And I was just thinking about what other tools myself or other guitar players might use when they're navigating the fretboard, because it's not all like every single method has its own things that it's good at doing, but every method also kind of has its blind spots, I guess. And that's why you'll notice that when you talk to better guitar players, more experienced guitar players, a lot of times they're going to tell you that they're using combinations of these different navigation systems. So things like the caged system, things like the scale positions, which are the two things we kind of combined in this week's lesson, but also things like the 3-note per string system, which is very similar to the positions, except it's stretching things into 3 notes per string rather than the usual kind of 2-note per string pentatonic shapes that most people are used to using. You can also use triads, so learning that and how they all tie in. The thing is that if it works, then it's always connected, because that's how our instrument is designed. So if something sounds like it works or something feels like it works, then it's going to be connected to everything else you're learning. So a lot of times my focus is on the home base, which is focusing things in on one position, maximizing your use of that position, and then focusing more on that than the other positions. But you still want to eventually start, whether it's start breaking out, depending on which point you're at, or you are ready to actually go and use those other positions on the fretboard, there needs to be some way to make it digestible. So when I look down at my fretboard, I'm usually seeing these little hacks or tricks that kind of can quickly tell me where I should be or where I am or where I should go, depending on the key that I'm in. And this is one of those methods. So a lot of times we focus on one position and using caged for that, where it's like, okay, well, in the key of C major, I want to be able to play all 7 diatonic chords. Well, we can put those all in one position. Right? We've talked about that quite a few times. We can use that to find our triad shapes, chord tones when we're soloing, or just be able to access a certain chord close by where you're playing lead guitar stuff. It's great for like combining lead and rhythm. However, we can also use caged as a way to, like, rather than it being, okay, we're going to use C, A, G, E, and D shapes to play all these different chords from a key, we can use them to just play a bunch of variations of one chord. And that's what we did here. We took the C major chord and we stretched it all the way across the fretboard. And it literally will go from one end of the fretboard all the way to the other until you eventually run out of space on either side. And this would be every single chord. So you could take any chord you wanted. You could take any major chord, so any of the 12 major chords, so A sharp, B, C, or the flat variants, however you want to look at it. Every single one of those would have connected shapes across the entire fretboard using C, A, G, E, and D shapes. Now, having an open C chord to start this is nice because it's convenient. If you're starting with something like a C sharp chord, well, that's not so nice. You're going to have to bar that. And as a chord, it's not great, but as a visual landmark for the position, it's very, very helpful because you can see inside of that position that there's a C shape there. And then I go, okay, I can see the C shape, even though I know I'm not playing a regular C major chord. It's technically representing a C sharp in this instance, but that C sharp I could stretch all the way across the fretboard, and that would live inside of each of my scale positions. And what I do is I use this in combination with my knowledge of all the positions. So I know all the positions. So if I'm just noodling, I might mess it up here because this is all done in one take. But if I'm just noodling, okay, so I'm covering a little kind of section of the fretboard, not the entire thing, but a good chunk. What I'm seeing when I'm doing this is one, the home base. I see my position 1 when I'm here. When I move up, I'm seeing position 2. Okay? When I'm down here, I'm seeing position 5. But to very quickly kind of orient myself when I'm up here or when I'm going further, I'm seeing first those chord shapes. So when I come up here, I'm seeing that, right? The E shape there. When I'm down here, I'm seeing that chord that shares the name with the key. Same as when I start going all the way up. I'm seeing that D-shape version of the C chord. And these are just acting as these little landmarks to make sure that I don't get too far off the trail. It's like, oh, I know that's there. So then I know that those shapes are gonna work. And eventually that builds into your muscle memory too. And so when you are playing, even when you're closing your eyes and playing or not looking at your fretboard, you can sense that those landmarks are nice and close to you, and they're gonna help you make sure that the pattern you play is correct for the position. Now, this is gonna take some time to like learn all the positions, but it's a good starting point, right? To know, well, instead of just playing, I'm gonna play in position 2. Right? Instead of just being like, okay, well, what is the pattern for position 2? Okay, it's first finger, second finger, fourth finger, then what's next? Rather than thinking like that, you can think more of, okay, it's starting from that E major shape of my C major chord, but on top of that, there is a scale shape. And so you can connect that scale shape in your mind to that chord shape. And it makes it a lot easier than just remembering numbers. And I think the combination is probably gonna be your best move. It's like sometimes you're thinking of position 2, sometimes you're thinking of the E shape, whichever kind of works best for you in that moment. So that's the main kind of takeaway from this lesson. It is a little more of an upper intermediate one just because we're breaking free of the kind of the home base. And I would say that if you're practicing this, don't worry about this is my method for memorizing every single position right away. Think of it more as I'm going to add a position or 2 positions, and I'm still thinking of visualizing the caged shape that shares the name of my key. I'd love to know from you what you kind of think of this, because it's a little bit of a different approach from what I normally do, where I focus more on one shape. I thought it would be nice, or one position. I thought it'd be nice to maybe try a different approach where we're looking at things a little bit more stretched. So if you found it useful, please let me know, or even just like the video, give it a heart here. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if anything here kind of caused confusion. Once again, make sure you download the PDF that goes along with this week's YouTube video. It's probably going to be very helpful. So other than that, I don't have much else to say. So I hope you have a great week or weekend, and I'll see you very soon.